So as we get started, one of the things that we knew was that we didn't want to play an improv game because we didn't want this to be performance, but sermon. And we didn't want to take questions because that seemed a little too easy. We've answered a lot or most of the questions that we get. So we thought we needed something that's just a little catalyst to get Daniel and me together in conversation, maybe a little free association for a minute. Bear with us, and then hopefully it'll get where it's going. Karen Stanton, you're the first person I saw. You give me a letter from the alphabet? L.
L.
Life.
Love.
Laughing.
Laughter's a good spot, a good start.
Okay.
Fulgham said, "He who laughs lasts."
Huh.
And makes me think of all those religious and spiritual characters in the world's cultures who try to turn upside down that which is orderly. So it fits actually right now what we're doing. The trickster character, that character that comes into a ritual and breaks it open in ways that ask people to not be so serious, to not expect the outcome to be so orderly, just like life, which is the other L word. And I'm always attracted to the trickster. I think people who have been around here since I've been here 12 years know that maybe I brought a little bit of that with me here, to say it's okay to laugh at ourselves, to step out of that which is orderly. And that's been important to me in my life, and really a spiritual value in some ways.
So right now, what I'm feeling in response to that is this, well, first of all, kind of a real fast heartbeat. But I can sense myself wanting to use laughter or kind of a joke as either a way to get to something really powerful or a way to avoid it. And I'm thinking of Jesus being criticized. Hello. Jesus being criticized for not doing some of the serious stuff. That he was criticized for going to weddings and having fun and laughing and drinking and enjoying food, and kind of this pleasure in life was something that he was criticized for. And there's often this point, I think I actually remember one of the first weeks that I was here as a minister, somebody said to me, I'm a little worried that I'm going to come to church and you guys are going to try to make me happy. And I went,
never the goal.
Never, yeah, right. I said, well,
we only want sad people here.
I said, we can make you really upset if you want us to, but that's... But I wonder, as a church, and I'm sensing, I mean, there's a full room here today, a full sanctuary, if our culture isn't kind of longing for something that breaks down those barriers when it's okay. It's okay to have everything not wrapped up in a neat and tidy package. It's okay to just be ourselves or make the mistakes or whatever that is, and that, like you said, all those most major religious figures have been criticized for messing up the order that somebody so kind of diligently put together before they got there.
Right. The Buddha, of course, sitting when asked what I can't remember even the question, but what is the truth, or what are we supposed to do? And he holds up a flower, like saying to his disciples, "There's no answer that I can impose on you to make your life better. There's a path that we understand, but you have to travel that path." And so I understand I'm stretching this a little bit, but also ties into our spiritual world here, which is not about answers, but it's about holding each other in sort of a creative tension of what is the spiritual life we are after. Someone asked me last night, I was at the Dallas Bar Association, I did the prayer. I've never been in a room with so many lawyers and judges before. I was really conscious of like where my car was going as I was coming in. If I scratched somebody's car, it was going to be a big but somebody asked me at the table I was sitting at, are you waiting for salvation? Are you waiting for a Savior?
That was a literal question?
Yeah, that was a literal question, because we were talking about sort of Christology, or who Jesus was. And I just thought again and again, like, those aren't the questions that help us here in this context. It's the path to understanding those things. And sometimes the answer is just to hold up a flower. And in some, I think, my response was sort of like, no. And she went away. I don't know,
Somewhere there's a conversation about this weird minister I met, and all one-word answers. Zen master.
Well, we had had a whole conversation by then, but it was okay.
But I sense that frustration sometimes in members of this congregation, is that there's kind of this dual thing where we come into this place, and I'm guessing the vast majority of the people who come here don't want to be told, okay, this is the answer to your life. You've got a problem, here are steps A, B, and C, this is going to be solved, and we've got an answer for what happens after you die, and all that. And yet, it seems like the people who are coming to this church right now, the newest members in the last maybe 5 years, actually are coming in with these questions saying, I'm feeling like I'm at a loss for direction in my life. Do you have a path? And that, I've heard members of our church who have been here 20 or 30 years say, you got to be kidding me. That's not maybe what they came in seeking. And it can't be all taking down the barriers. Like, this place can't just exist for us to not give you any direction in life.
So in that way, the trickster is useful sometimes, but not in other times.
Yeah.
So that the deconstruction of the structure of things is not what we're always about. So it sort of reminds me, like, we don't do this. We've never actually done this.
Right, yeah, no.
And probably won't for a long time. It's fairly terrifying for us, You seem happy, but we're up here.
We're mortified.
But you don't come here every Sunday and it is totally different. Yeah. You don't walk in and everything's upside down for a reason, right? Yeah. Because the container holds us. It holds us in the times when you walk in here and your mother just died. It holds us in a way that allows us each here to create importance in the moment. So I think some of our faith actually has missed that. It's become more coyote and less, in that way, and when I'm saying coyote, I mean trickster, and less formal. But on the other hand, we see traditions that are too formal and have no coyote crumbling in a way because they don't make sense. So there's sort of a flexibility. It's sort of like that reading, the Wu Wei. It's like I go up with the water, I come down with the water river still runs, right? And just for your, I didn't plan that thought. But that container holds us, I think, and that's important for who we are as spiritual people. And then occasionally, we turn it upside down, like Jesus in the temple comes in and he says, turn the tables upside down. Why did he do that? He said, it's traditionally kind of spoken of as a statement against the established temple, that they had lost their way. But in a way, I think it's a way that he, maybe in the story, that character of Jesus plans this moment to go in and literally turn the tables upside down and say, occasionally we have to break mode. It's the Emerson quote, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, right? That if we just do the same thing every day in all the same ways, there's a comfort there, but also there's probably not a lot of growth. Walter Mitty film, there's a lot of films about this right now, actually. Llewyn Davis, there's all these films about these solitary characters who live this kind of life, and then they have to break out in order to learn something of themselves.
But is that not like that's in some way, I think, a plague that we're dealing with, is this sense that there's a lot more potential to who we could be.
Want a glass of water?
Yeah, I would like that. Actually, I'm worrying right now, in this moment. You talked about that structure, that so there's a need for a trickster, there's a need for a prophet, but the prophet doesn't walk into your hospital room while you're sick and dying and say, you're living in an unjust society. Or the trickster doesn't come in those moments of comfort. And one of the things you and I talked about was worrying that on a Sunday like this, people who were suffering may not walk away with that sense of comfort. But I kind of get the feel that on a lot of Sundays, it doesn't matter all too much. I'm going to say this and maybe not mean it, but let me put it this way: this is more important. The evidence that there's how many hundreds of people in the room devoted to a better world than what you and I prepare to say on any given Sunday morning. The simple fact that all these people have shown up committed to building a world that's better than we have, to me, takes away a little of that anxiety, even in this moment, from having to say or do some sort of profound thing.
And I think the profound nature of this conversation actually is present. I think people are feeling that. But I also, I felt right as that hymn was ending, whatever that was, I can't even remember what it was, as tranquil streams, that the congregation does own this moment. And that's important, like we actually own these pulpits. We speak freely from these pulpits. These aren't anyone's but ours. But I think the congregation owns the gathering in a way. And I felt that you were holding that space for us as we stood up here without any preparation. And I think that's that interchange that's important. And I don't know how to translate that to hospital room, but so I just got a little lost there. But
what I hear in that is that the church is not the building. We have freedom of the pulpit, but the church has freedom of the pew. And in this tradition, more so than almost any other, the church, you are responsible for whether or not church happens or whether church is successful. We live in a culture where people do delivered products and don't participate in creating them, or I think that feeds into church sometimes too. I remember I asked somebody, we did a retreat in 2010, and I asked somebody, would you pray to start the meeting off? And there was this kind of look like, oh wait, what, you're the minister, you're supposed to be the one doing that. And I think it's odd that in a tradition like ours, where we vote on the important things and the congregation owns this building and calls us as ministers individually, that I think sometimes, and I could be wrong, I feel this sort of anxiety sometimes on the part of our members to then take the ministry and own it and carry it out for themselves. It's not just us at somebody's hospital bed, or it's not just us praying, it's not just us doing social justice work, that each and every person in this room owns, in fact, greater responsibility for it than we do, because we're all, temporary participants.
You mean in mortal ways?
Well,
the more and more I'm in this ministry, the more I understand that.
This is not our
Yeah.
congregation.
Yeah, and I think about that a lot when I'm sitting here with this congregation and just thinking back to 1899 and the minister sitting up here with that congregation, not in this building, obviously, but all those years that pass and all the important conversations and all the laughter and all the things that happened, that it's a big flow. It's that river. It's the Wu Wei River where we get to sort of pass through it for a moment.
Well, that's a cool thing. When I saw on Christmas Eve, we were doing communion, and somebody came through the line after the service. I said, "Oh, I didn't recognize so and so," and Daniel said, "Oh, they left the church because they had to move in 2004, but I dedicated their children, and that's those kids. They came here and they took communion, and now they're UU somewhere else." That there's this sense that somebody's going to take care of my son here, and somebody's going to remember that. And we are in this kind of long tradition here where if we build this place appropriately, maybe somebody here will take care of my grandkids because we built it well. And that's a cool thing. That's an odd thing in our society, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just noticing
That we're noticing a lull.
Yeah,
What time
noticing
is it?
that.
Maybe we're there.
No, I don't think we're that. We're almost there. But I'm trying to think of what does this all mean? Not
does this
all
all
this,
mean?
not all this, but
Like
what
today,
does this mean?
right
What
now?
does this mean? Yeah. We started with laughter.
Yeah. Well, I didn't sleep well last night. Right? And I had the dream where you show up, every literal dream where you show up and they go, "You're supposed to preach." And you go, "Great. Oh no, I don't have any notes."
Yeah.
And I think that there's this, we said before we walked out here, feels like they're excited and we're nervous. That we can trust each other. That this is, I think what we're seeing here today is that there's a community. They wouldn't put up with this every week. But that we have this deep trust in each other, and that we can make mistakes, and that there's something innately good about us that if we just get out of the way, we know we can be good for each other even without having any expertise in it. And I'm feeling that in this moment.
Yeah, I think the experiment, at least for right now, we've got another service to do, and you can stick around because we have no idea what's going to happen then either. But I do think the experiment relates back to our readings, and that is to say that there is something that we can count on. You know, it's the professor in seminary who always said, "You are enough," and I heard that message when I came here too, preached numerous times, and that there is an interchange between finding answers and finding questions that we can count on. So there's that container, and then there's that moment where we throw all that out, like right now, and we just say, what are we doing? What's happening in our hearts and minds?
And even then, there's still something present that's dependable.
So we'll just close with what we said earlier. And in so doing, we hold up the spiritual values that you are enough, that life itself is improvisation, that we are not God or in control, that when we shed the noise of life, sometimes we find at the core answers to what is important, and there the creative spirit can bloom. And so I wrote down these questions. I said, where in your life can you let go of the results and meet the opportunity of the creative spirit? And we encourage you to trust yourself and those around you to find the answers to your questions. And so we close, I think.
Amen.
Should we take a ta-da?
Ta-da.
Ta-da.